yeah, the smooth sounds of Sean Connor. Welcome
Oh
everybody
yeah.
to Rad Pod and Chill. My name is Heidi Sigmund Kuda, and I am here with High Fidelity and Jim Stewartson. We host a weekly show and a breaking news show we investigate disinformation. On Thursday nights, we are just sort of a chillacious recap of our most recent episode, as well as whatever is breaking in news. And we have a little bit of breaking news today, and maybe Jim should kick us off with his assessment of. I believe today was a good day for the rule of law. Do you gentlemen agree?
I thought we were
Yeah,
doing sports. I thought we were doing sports ball.
We'll do sports ball
we'll,
next.
we'll get there.
Okay.
Let's get right.
It's so difficult. We're already getting into arguments.
No, we're
Yeah.
not.
Wait a second. Before you answer my question, Jim, I just want to point out that there is a very brilliant person who thought that we could have a much further reach if the guys weren't so sweary and smoky. And I realized that we're always going to be the Ramones in the van and we're not going to be the Offspring. And I'm freaking cool with that.
That may have been of too subtle of a metaphor, but I feel you.
Yeah,
I
works for me. Works for me. We're always going to be sharing the van. It's going to be breaking down. You know,
yeah,
the
right.
venues are going to be like a couple hundred people. Maybe, we'll grow to like 1,000 plus or whatever, but it's not going to be arenas, and that's okay, except 30 years from now.
Okay, we're pushing this metaphor too far, Heidi. This
Too
metaphor,
far.
this,
Too
this
far.
metaphor died for death a long time ago.
Rein it back in. Put
Well,
it back
hey,
in.
don't pay no mind.
So
Anyway,
it was a good day for America. Look, it says right there on my hat. Uh, by the way, I want everyone to know that you should be honored by my presence because the fucking Warriors have a playoff game right now. I'm here instead. So appreciate me. I sort of kidded. The
I appreciate it.
Cowboys got rung up today for real, which is no shit a very big deal. It given the amount of pressure and fuckery and whatnot that goes on in these sorts of trials, especially with these kinds of people. I was concerned about this verdict, but the verdict was extremely good. We got 4 out of 5 of them rolled up for seditious conspiracy, which is fucking amazing.
yeah.
Well, you guys have been listening to me for a year say 2023 is going to be the year we find out if we're a rule of law country. I feel a bit better about that today. I also feel really good knowing that special counsel Jack Smith was at the Mike Pence testimony in front of the grand jury last week. I feel very good that the FBI just arrested a former FBI officer.
Well, that's the whole thing. Let's wait for that one because
I
that's
just,
the whole.
I'm
Yeah,
just
because that's a big thing.
okay.
That's a big one. Let's do one at a time because I want to make sure that everyone understands that
Okay.
one of the Proud Boys that got rolled up is a guy named Joseph Biggs, who was a sergeant for Mike Flynn in Afghanistan, and Stanley McChrystal, by the way, and Charles Flynn, who was chief of staff to Stanley McChrystal in Afghanistan. Anyway, Joe Biggs has a whole lot of problems, but his biggest one is that he was just convicted of seditious conspiracy for overthrowing the Capitol, which is kind of weird because, again, Joe Biggs has been a good friend of the Flynns for a very, very long time, a couple decades, I think, at this point.
How long?
Quite some time. A decade ago, there was a very, very tragic incident where Michael Hastings died, and Joe Biggs happened to be the last person to speak with him or got
email, I believe.
Email that he sent, to be very, very precise about it, because it, squirrely. And a few hours later, Michael Hastings died in a one-car crash. Ran right into a tree at 100 miles an hour, and made no sense to anyone whatsoever. So whether or not Joe Biggs had anything to do with that, he's going to prison, and it is important to understand that the reason why he was at the front of the line with his Proud Boy friends is because he was there for Mike Flynn. He's not just a digital soldier, he's a kinetic one. Literally, he was literally a soldier, and was there to overthrow the country for the guy he's been working for on and off for a couple decades. So I think that that's a very important thing to understand about what happened. At the same time, also, Enrique Tarrio, and I was worried about this one because he wasn't in D.C., they got him anyway. You don't have to be in the place these days to conspire for shit. And luckily, the jury figured that out and rung him up for seditious conspiracies too. The problem that presents is with Roger Stone, who is, basically Enrique's daddy.
So, okay. So what I'd like you to do for
Literally, like
okay.
his daddy.
So what I would like you to do for people who don't know the backstory is I was trying to find the right words to sort of describe groups like Proud Boys and Oath Keepers. Because again, I think a lot of times people just, it's all too much for them. So can you kind of give a sense or a bit of a background on these groups? We have had former Oath Keepers propagandist on our show before, Jason Van Tatenhove, who wrote a very important book called Perils of Extremism. So if somebody wants to go deeper, that might be one recommendation. But Jim, can you sort of give them a summary?
Yeah, white supremacist paramilitary.
Okay.
So they are often mislabeled as militias, right? They want to be seen as a militia. They want to be seen as some sort of constitutionally protected group. They are no such fucking thing. They are not a militia. The militia that we have is called the National Guard. That's what the militia is. These fucking guys out there in their goddamn, with their duck whistles and fucking, camouflage or whatever, pretending that they're shooting Antifers. These are paramilitaries. And by paramilitary, I mean like paranormal is like shit that's sort of like normal but is fucking not. These are like militias or military but fucking not. They're just, a lot of times ex-military who were addicted, frankly, to killing and want to do it again. Joe Biggs, in particular, and this is important, actively sought out combat in Iraq. And he got it. His recruiter was like, that's the first time anyone's asked me to put them in the most dangerous possible place. But they did. And so he killed a bunch of Muslims over there with Mike Flynn and Eric Prince. This is the guy that we're talking about. Is a psychopath who wants death, who wants destruction, who wants anarchy. Part of the reason why I need to warn people not to go to January 6th is because Joe Biggs told me. He said, Antifers, I want you to come to D.C. so we can rough you up, so we can have the Insurrection Act. That's going to be awesome. Why don't you do that?
Yeah.
Like, hey, guys.
No.
Yeah.
The guy over here. Terrio did it too. This guy over here wants you to go there. So that means you shouldn't.
So
hold on.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. So I actually The Proud Boys were a secondary battalion. They were not as well trained. They were not as much military as like the 3%ers or the Oath Keepers. The 3%ers and the Oath Keepers were more like a shock troop. They were, they were in formation. They were formally trained military, whereas the Proud Boys were a bit more of a street fighting brawler to Tushki type. They were meant to interact with Antifa, right? But this is, it's called the Order of Battle. You got QAnon, because remember Doug Jensen with the big Q, he was first in, right? And Ashley Babbitt got the farthest. She was Q. And then you have all these other people. And yeah, I think we're going to see this kind of thing play out as we go up the ladder.
Yeah, I mean, the PBs were not as you're right, as quite as organized, but again, Joe Biggs was one of the leaders of the Proud Boys, and he's absolutely military and knew all about how to run operations to do shit like that. Sorry, Heidi.
No, I think it's fascinating because the people who were actually at the Capitol who were covering it kept saying, I was observing military lines. I was observing basically a military operation. Who was behind it? Who was behind it? And we all were just like, well, obviously, we believe we know who was behind it. Now we are seeing it get that much closer to the people who we've always believed were behind it. And just so people understand how serious this is, because every day, the zone is flooded with more shit and things will get moved off of the front page. But the gentleman that Jim is talking about is facing 20 years in prison. Like, this is serious, serious stuff.
Just for one charge.
And
no. Overall, they're looking at like over 60 years.
Well, I'm sure there'll be some concurrent there, but perhaps not. I don't know. But it's very important to note that there have been about 1,000, prosecutions, maybe 600 convictions. I haven't looked at the most recent numbers. I did listen to Merrick Garland today as he gave his statement. But because of the people that you just mentioned, we can go back to sports ball, and I could tell you about being from San Francisco and being a Warriors fan, but I'm sure you guys don't want to do that. I would like to talk about, are we ready to move on to the next big news of this week, in my opinion? The FBI arrest of Jared Wise. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, hold on. Before we go on to that, can I just show one thing? Because somebody's been feeling a little saucy today, and I'm loving it. So shout out to Mr. Riggleman.
Oh, I saw that. I saw
saying what everybody's thinking.
I
saw
buddy. That. And again, because I don't want to talk over people's heads, I want to be sensitive to everybody having different bits of intel. Why is that important? How does this connect with Roger Stone? I know you said, he's Tario's daddy, but let's get like a little bit more granular on why this should not be a good day for Roger Stone.
How about the fundraising?
In Tario's case, he's like literally his dad. He hangs out with him all the time in Florida together, with the wife or whatever, and God knows. But there's some. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I just had a terrible visual. Okay.
There was no visual.
Going on
there.
Mute.
Is he making gagging sounds? Is that what's happening?
He screams.
Okay, so Roger Stone is deeply connected to the Proud Boys and has been for a long time. He and Gavin McInnes, he goes back with these guys for forever. So there's no mystery at all about that. The tie with Mike Flynn and the Proud Boys is slightly less, blatant. But Mike Flynn Jr. is really, lots of pictures of them together. They hang out and, with all the same people at all the same times.
Yeah, no, it's interesting to me because you know, every day since we've been doing this work, and me predating it, going back to 2018 when I worked on a Democratic congressional campaign to take out Dana Rohrabacher, I've been dealing with the intensity of online hate terrorism and real world hate terrorism, and and you know, I go to bed every night going, at least I didn't try to overthrow my government. At least I'm not a traitor. At least I don't take money from Vladimir Putin and his allies. You know, there's like a big distinction between the work that journalists do and activists do to try to get the word out. And I just feel like those who are bringing truth in a time of mass deception are constantly under siege. But the law is the law. And today, as you wrote today, Jim, on your Substack, I'm going to choose to just breathe a little deeper, just like, you know, take a breath and go, okay, like this is important.
Well, the reason why it's important is not, you know, just for accountability, but it provides an incredibly important foundation, a stone for the foundation that Jack Smith is going to need if Jack Smith does his fucking job and goes after the people who really did this, right? And it looks good. It looks good. I refuse to be Mullered again, so I'm going to hold my fire until
Be cautious. Right.
indictments. But it is starting to look good over there. So you know, here's the question, right? They're convicted of seditious conspiracy. Who did they conspire with? Just each other? Probably not, right? It's probably not like Enrique Tarrio and Joe Biggs just going back and forth on text, right? They probably have some people that are telling them what to do. You think? Probably.
Maybe those people were holed up in a command post somewhere.
Oh, maybe in a hotel somewhere or something.
Maybe a hotel.
Sorry, in my answer to why is Roger Stone important, Roger Stone set up the fucking Willard room where the command center was for the insurrection. So you know, there's that.
I want to like zoom out just a little bit further for a moment because
I just got off an hour and a half Zoom, Heidi.
I didn't mean to use a trigger word. So one of the leaders of Scotland, I know, Jim, I know. One of the leaders of Scotland, I'm trying to find my tweet. I'll retweet it in a moment. Believes that Trump should not be allowed to visit the UK because he tried to overthrow the government. Okay? So if a leader of Scotland has the sensibility to say, you know what, we don't want Trump coming here because he tried to overthrow democracy in America and the government, then what are we doing? Today was a good day. Today was a good day, but we have some boss level people that we need to see accountability for much, much sooner. And yes, we have had some.
You don't have to tell me. You don't have to convince me, man. Yes. This again. It was a good day. Let's move on to the second one because that was also. So what really makes it a good day, besides the blatantly obvious fact that the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers got rolled up for seditious conspiracy, is that another guy was charged in the January 6th insurrection. Now, this is a very, very specific guy with a very, very specific background. He was an FBI agent in the New York FBI during the 2016 election in counterintelligence, working for Charles fucking McGonigal, who's just rolled up for being a Kremlin asset.
Yes.
Now, to remind people, the New York FBI is why Hillary Clinton was not president. And we're in this fucking podcast right now talking about this bullshit.
He's responsible for this podcast.
Well, sort of. I mean, look,
Sorta.
the New York FBI manufactured all the bullshit that gave Comey the excuse for the October surprise. Comey delivered the October surprise. Let's make no fucking mistake, right? Whether it was intentional, like,
was he incompetent or was he complicit?
Either right. You make a judgment. Doesn't really matter.
Which is worse?
I don't know. Anyway, Charles McGonigal is a Kremlin asset. It was working for fucking Konstantin Kalimnik while he was running counterintelligence in the New York FBI, while they were manufacturing propaganda that cost Hillary Clinton the presidency and gave it to a Russian fucking puppet. Yes. So the fact that not only do we have Charles McGonigal, but they're starting to find other creatures from the Russian Lagoon and fucking in the New York FBI leads me to believe that there is a non-trivial amount of activity going on the counterintelligence front. And to be perfectly honest, if I were Chris Wray right now, I'd be looking a little bit sideways, like, because these are his pals. These are his buddies.
It's not a good look, Christopher Wray. It's
no.
Not a good look.
Oh, and by the way, where the fuck was he on January 6th? Despite all the goddamn FBI, the viral tweets and the fucking everything, where the fuck was he? If I recall correctly, he said there was no way to know.
Yes, he did not know.
Well, I think it would be a good time for him to decide to resign to spend more time with his family.
That's a good idea.
I think that there would be a lot of people who would feel a lot better. I think that it's very important to note that the FBI itself, and this is a direct quote coming from the report from the New York Times yesterday, but it's something we've known because this is a quote that we've heard many times before. I think it's very important to note that the FBI, after the attack, a top FBI official warned that many within the Bureau were sympathetic to the mob on January 6th. So the fact that there hasn't been a major cleansing, so to speak, like a major house cleaning with Christopher Wray resigning to spend more time with his family is a little bit distressing to me.
Yeah. Well, can we talk a little bit more about Jared? Because Jared's a very accomplished fellow. So not only was he at the insurrection, by the way, calling for his fellow rioters to murder law enforcement.
Yeah, that's directly from the court documents that the FBI turned in. So those are direct quotes from the FBI.
Was trying to get law enforcement murdered. A couple of other things about him. After, and get this, he was fired for incompetence or something in 2017.
They don't say exactly what, but they were not happy with his performance.
They were not happy with his performance.
Boy, that year is a loaded year, by the way.
So anyway, so they fire this guy, and guess where he gets a fucking job? At Project Veritas. Project Veritas, Eric Prince's like terrorist psyops fucking group. Thank you, Hi-Fi. There's my tweet.
Yeah.
Project Veritas, and was trained at Eric Prince's terrorist ranch in Wyoming.
And an additional footnote to that story, which was reported in the New York Times yesterday, he was under the supervision of a former British spy, Richard Seddon, who had been recruited by the security contractor Eric Prince to train operatives to infiltrate trade unions, Democratic congressional campaigns, and other targets. And I think that's very
liberal
important.
targets.
That's very important.
He's got a whole network of this shit. He's got these fucking people.
Transnational. Let's just
Well,
talk
it's
about
transnational, but it's also, we're also talking about people running around on Twitter and maybe in our comments, literally, who are trained by these fucking psychos.
Yeah.
Like, he's got a whole pipeline for these maniacs, for people, and we learned this on our earlier show. They're usually psychopathic sadists. Literally, they find and create psychopathic sadists, and Eric Prince trains them on how to terrorize people. He is literally a terrorist trainer. That's what he does. That's his.
Well, you wouldn't know that from watching corporate controlled media, because every time he makes an appearance, he's just a good old boy. He's not the guy in the Seychelles with the Russians. You know, he's not the guy who works with the guy who's currently behind bars for sexual assault of children. He's just a good old beer drinking happy guy. Yeah, high five.
So somebody in the chat pointed out that Prince had red sparrows, basically, and I do remember there was a brown-haired young lady. Do you remember who I'm thinking of, Jim?
Anna Kate?
Anna Kate, was that it?
Anna Kate was one of them. I mean, look.
Honeypots basically was the point.
They ran honeypots on H.R. McMaster. They've done it.
So I would like to point out that who was busted in the UK for telling potential clients on hidden camera that they
Cambridge
would use
Analytica executives. I was just thinking about that. It was the same tactics that when Channel 4 went undercover with Cambridge Analytica executives, they boasted that they can entrap people with essentially the equivalents of red sparrows, honeypots, and that's part of their techniques. So, and speaking of which, I found it very interesting that Patrick Byrne, who is in the middle of all of this and what we're talking about, basically went to defend Maria Butina on Twitter today, I think it was, where he's like, Patrick Byrne. Is it Patrick Byrne? Because somebody kept pointing out when he was doing his propaganda, somebody points out, yeah, you know, you and the Red Sparrow, and he's like, oh, she's a great lady. So we just had one of these guys call a Russian spy who is now a full-time propagandist on television in Russia doing puff pieces on Elon Musk, a great lady. And I bring that up because, Jim, I would say it was probably about a year ago you said they now do all this in the open. They are now openly boasting about essentially being Kremlin assets. And that was a very solid example of somebody openly praising a Russian spy who was in the White House when these schemes were being hatched to overthrow our government. So what the fuck?
She wasn't. She didn't make it to the White House, thank God. But he
no,
did.
No.
There were rumors about that. I just want to clarify for people.
Sorry.
I'm not saying you were saying that. Yes,
she made it around the NRA.
Patrick Byrne was in the White House on December 18th, 2020, when Mike Flynn and Donald Trump and the rest of these psychos decided on the insurrection. That is a fact. It is also a fact that Patrick Byrne was kind of a crazy Peter Thiel-ish, kind of slightly wacko dude until he started bonking Maria Butina, and then immediately turned into Mike Flynn's fucking money launderer and propagandist.
What's wrong with these guys?
Isn't that weird? Isn't it weird how all of a sudden Patrick Byrne, a big billionaire, right, with some problems, maybe some mental problems, maybe a little something going on there, suddenly meets up with this Red Sparrow. And then all of a sudden, fucking dude is batshit crazy, spreading Kremlin propaganda and funding Mike Flynn's propaganda movies and shit, and funding the what do you call the fucking ninjas, the cyber ninjas. Patrick Byrne paid $1 million to the motherfucking cyber ninjas.
Cyber Ninjas
Does
Arizona, right?
this story ring a bell to anybody? That Maria Butina was there to compromise and mindfuck Patrick Byrne to hand him to General Flynn. I don't know. Seems logical to me, given that ever since Maria Butina stopped bonking him, Patrick Byrne has been following Mike Flynn around like a puppy, like a terrified, weird, redheaded puppy. I don't know what the fuck's going on there, but he is 100% fully mind fucked, and it is impossible to speak to him. I've had numerous conversations with him now, by the way.
Yeah.
Usually starts with quote tweeting him and trolling him about Maria, because it's so easy and it's fun, and I like to do it.
To be clear, Maria was found out by our Justice Department for being a Russian spy and sent back to Russia in a swap.
Well, she spent 1 year in prison.
Okay.
I mean, she ran around the United States of America, compromising lobbyists, the NRA, all sort, like she's seen with all kinds of congressmen and senators.
She must have been very good. She must have been very well trained.
I guess so. Anyway, homegirl got around for years, right? And then disappears. And literally every single person, as she bonked, is doing Kremlin shit now. That's so weird.
Yeah.
I mean, it just boggles my mind that it's not, sort of, people like give him crap because he banged a Russian spy. Well, what does that mean, right?
Yeah.
What does it mean that he banged a Russian spy? It's not just about, oh, he's a dumbass. It's about he got compromised, right? They rolled up on him, got information from him that compromised him, and ran God knows how many psyops on him. Listen, he has stories that he believes, that he really, really believes, that sound like Wes Clark's stories, right? They sound like the stories that happened to Wes Clark in American Psyop, where people are coming at him from all directions, fucking with his mind, right? And basically kind of traumatizing and cracking his brain open into believing all kinds of crazy shit. I'm not absolving him of responsibility.
Of course.
But I am saying that stuff happens. It happens all the damn time. Guess who else it happened to? The other billionaire who happened to be in the White House on December 18th, 2020. They saw this fucking they saw this ex-drug addict up in the Midwest, and were like, "Ooh, he's got billions of dollars. He doesn't know what to do with," and they mind fucked him too. That is a thing that happens that collectively we just have to realize actually happens. People come and they turn people against us.
I just want to point out that we have been doing a show about radicalization, an investigative show about radicalization for a few years now. And when I read the words that Jared Wise said to the Capitol police officer as he was encouraging the mob to kill him, calling the police who were there to defend our democracy the Gestapo, calling them Nazis, bragging that he was former law enforcement. I have to think that those words to me sounded like somebody who had been radicalized as well. So when we talk about radicalization and we get letters like the letter that I posted today when I did my report on what we're talking about today, you know, we hear from people in sheriff's departments across the country who say that their colleagues have been overcome with a mind virus. These are not
Yeah.
my words. These are the words of members of law enforcement who watch our show for comfort because they realize that people that they worked with have been psyoped and radicalized. So I just wanted
Mhm.
to state that because Jim, I think you're right.
There's another element to Jared though, right? And to your point about Nazis and Gestapos and all that shit, right? Like, why did he get that radicalized? Why is he acting like crazy? Because he was trained by Eric Prince. Because Eric Prince trains people by brainwashing them, by putting them through, these mind fucking exercises and stuff, and literally training them how to be sadistic psychopaths. It's what he does. Like, anybody remember Kanye West?
Yes.
What happened to Kanye West?
Yes.
Kanye West met Eric Prince at Trump Tower in 2016, and then in 2017 moved to Wyoming, where Eric Prince has his fucking ranch where he trains people to act like Jared Wise, which I don't know, sounds vaguely familiar, right?
It
Like,
sounds like
you've got these psychos who train trainers to go out in the world and run these operations on human beings, and we need to start recognizing it.
so. I want Hi-Fi. You want to say something?
Um, I was just thinking about that. Those, what's that tactical training place? Remember the one that has the tower as part
Oh
of
yeah,
its
88 tactical.
88 tactical? Yeah. Um, what kind of training place do you think that is?
Well,
You know,
that signals, you know, Nazis. That
Well,
signals, you know,
well,
this.
it's not just, yes, but it also trains people to be Nazis, right? And that training is not just, you know, LARPing in their yard or whatever, pretending to be soldiers. It's also, going through sort of group activities and shit that solidify their belief system.
Yeah.
yeah, it's
So
bonding, it's camaraderie, it's
yeah,
building it's building a networked
Just
insurgency across country.
briefly, I did an investigation with Gal and many other people's help on this company, 88 Tactical. Most of you, I'm sure, are aware. 88 is very, very common, shorthand for Heil Hitler in the white
yeah,
supremacist
yeah,
community. Now, you might think, they pretend that they tell this very elaborate story about police codes or something like that,
yeah.
and
Right.
and yet inside the place it has 1488 in big numbers on the wall, and 14 anyway. It's a Nazi training company, and indeed there are connections with Blackwater, and also with Bolsonaro, by the way, who
Yeah.
came over. Eduardo did, the son, came over to visit 88 Tactical to learn himself up on how to train Nazis.
So to all of this, to all these points, I just want to say that I have been binging Timothy Snyder's lecture series, The Making of Modern Ukraine. And it's like, I don't even sleep. I just like one after the other taking notes. And this is my observation. This is not something he said, but it's very clear to me that what dictators, authoritarians, fascist leaders do is they know what their goals are. And then they create the narratives to fit whatever their objective is to sell it to the masses. And I think that we see this. We spend way too much time trying to understand the why of cruelty, psychopathy, criminality. Those of us who don't think like that can't imagine why people would do these things. And I think what we need to do is much earlier triage the criminality, much earlier do something about it, as opposed to going, you know, why is this happening? What's going on? It's like, no, we see something, and much earlier, I think we need to nip it in the bud globally. And we didn't do that in 2016. But I want to state something that Timothy Snyder, who wrote on tyranny, and he's an incredible professor at Yale, he said, when there's a far right threat, the left should not be divided. And this matters in America because when the far right is on the rise, the left must unite. What are we seeing in America? The very opposite of that. We're seeing division. We're seeing puppet candidates again, a rerun that we've seen before. And we are continually seeing the gatekeepers on the supposed left trying to discredit anybody who is doing the work and the labor of democracy. And I just want to point out that in Ohio, we saw protests yesterday on behalf of democracy. We have had recent examples of in Wisconsin and Kansas. We are seeing people rise up in Montana. We are fully capable of beating this stuff back. But in my opinion, it's now or never. And when there's a far right threat, like we are seeing here in America, Texas and Florida are good examples, the left should not be divided. So I will ask people to get their shit together today.
Yes.
Here comes the but.
there's a serious but. Yes.
I know.
The but, right? Is all these fucking chaos agents.
Yes.
Right? All these people who are intentionally there to divide the left. Right? So one of the challenging things, for somebody like me who sees, people who are compromised on both the left and the right, is to be able to expose and criticize the people that are, intentionally disinforming people, without seeming like it's dividing the left, which is the whole point, right?
Right. Well,
It's why you have like Antifa has been so infiltrated, right? Like you go around and I'm sorry, but most of these fucking Antifa accounts are just, LARPs, right? At this point, a lot of great Antifas, don't get mad at me, but a lot of it's fucking bullshit. And the fact that I had to catch myself there and be like, don't get mad at me, right, is an example of why it's challenging. Because look, there really are chaos agents and bad actors embedded on the left. Some people you might not know that they are bad actors, right? That might not be obvious at first glance. And that's how it's intended to be. You're not supposed to be able to distinguish them at first glance.
Yeah.
So it makes it challenging. Yes, we need to be united, but we do not want to be united with bad apples, because bad apples will destroy us.
Okay, so what I want to then refine it for today's conversation is when there is a threat from the anti-democratic extremists, the pro-democracy people must unite. And pro-democracy can include people from many different political ideologies. It's just that what you don't want is to see fascism and authoritarians win, which to me is the inevitable result of people not doing the labor of democracy. It's never going to be easy. I knew that on 2016. I went to the Women's March January 2017. I was informed that it was going to be labor and I had to work harder, and I took that very much to heart.
We have to actively defend it, right? Because look, the right wing does a really good job at taking an idea and just grinding it into people's fucking brains, right? And one of those ideas is that democracy is somehow optional, right? That I mean, they literally say it out loud now, right? Stop being such a hard ass about democracy, schmemocracy. It's like they people like Flynn, they're always like, it's not a democracy, it's a constitutional republic, which is a form of democracy, you jackass, right? But what he's intentionally doing there is eroding and eliding the central purpose and point, which is that the people get to decide, not you motherfuckers, us.
Yeah.
That is the central premise that they are trying to take away from people, right? They're
Yeah.
trying to take away the partisan and joyously partisan democracy advocates, right? We used to even the fucking Republicans even used to have to pretend at least to like democracy. They don't pretend anymore,
Yeah.
right? And so in a lot of ways, our job is actually advocating for democracy, right?
And
It's not just about going after bad guys and blah blah blah.
yeah.
It's we have to again, and it's sad, but we have to again remind people that this goddamn country was not, as Mike Flynn wants to claim, based on the fucking Bible. It was based on democracy. It is fundamentally at its core a democracy. If there is no democracy, there is no America. And so
Wow.
we have to remind people that it's okay again to be against fascism. Fascism is not like something we have to fucking tolerate and oh, you're kind of edgy. No, fuck you. That's Nazi shit. It does not belong here at all. Period. Get the fuck out. Defeat it. Smash it into the goddamn ground. We have lost the collective ability to immediately react when somebody questions the fundamentals of our country.
And
And
I would
that is the thing we have to get back to.
I would like to add to that as you said earlier, we are in an empathy recession. And in order to more quickly, be useful in conversations like that, we must remember that. So I think that the empathy recession isn't even real. It's just that part of how the fascist creep works is people are sold fear. You have these chaos destabilization events, the mass shootings, people get more fearful, the othering is ratcheted up. And so to pull ourselves out of the empathy recession, we need to double down on our compassion and our kindness. And yes, high five.
Yeah.
Boomer, boomer, boomer.
And so they can grow up to be productive members of our society and be in our communities and grow up to be healthy LGBTQ adults. So I would say get involved, be an ally, learn. And an ally is an adjective. It's not just I accept LGBTQ community and I have no issues with it. Ally is acting. You have to be out there actively talking to people, actively putting people in their place when they say something that's bigoted. You really have to stick up for our LGBTQ community because we are going to start seeing a lot of increased mental health problems and unfortunately a lot of more suicide. And going into next school year, we're probably going to see a huge dropout rate because, quite frankly, kids don't want to go to school and be dead named. They want to be respected. They have rights. They're humans. And if they want to be called by a name that's not their biological name, or if there's a pronoun they use, I think that's a pretty small ask. And I think we need to fight to have that respected.
Okay, first of all, I love her. Okay, like
Right.
I'm trying not to cry because I love her so much. Hi-Fi was muted when he introduced that clip, but that was our breaking news special from earlier this week with a former Republican Florida mother who left the Republican Party because she did not want to be associated with a party that leads by hate. Those are her words. And she also has family members who are gay. So she infiltrated a Moms for Liberty group, and what she found was what she called horrible bigotry, racism, xenophobia, transphobia, all the she we shared screenshots in that episode, and I invite everybody to go to our YouTube site at Radicalized Podcast. Yes, high five.
Well, I was just thinking about like people like Undercover Mother infiltrating groups, gathering intel, and she used that to well, it looks like there's going to be some investigation of some school board members who were in these, hateful micro cults.
Yes, and it's very important when we asked her, yes, she turned over the information to various authorities and activists in her community in Central Florida. But when I asked her what her final word was for us, for our viewers who are global, she said, "Be careful who you hate, because it might actually be somebody you love." She's my goddamn hero. I'm telling you, you know?
All right, I gotta say that I liked what she said after we ended and we were off camera when she said, "Mess with my kids, and it's on."
Can I
She's a badass.
add another badass real quick to
Sure.
the two badasses?
List of
Somebody
badasses.
else who has gone into very, very challenging terrain of late is our friend Jackie Singh, who, if you do not follow her on Twitter and subscribe to her Medium, you are totally, trust me, missing the fuck out, and you should do that immediately. She's doing some of the bravest work I've ever seen in my entire life in any field.
Phenomenal.
I'm not going to get into it more here, but the level of sadism and just psychopathy that she's currently helping to
Eradicate.
put down is remarkable. So
I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen the way that the people that she's exposing are reacting. I've never seen anything like it ever. It is like she's taking away their reason to live. Like this hate cult is what they live for. It's their community, and like she's threatening it. And I've never seen anything like it. I can only compare it to some sort of really serious hate addiction.
These people are clinical psychopaths who've got a very, very dangerous sadistic addiction, and I mean that sincerely, not as like some sort of pejorative thing. Like these are really dangerous people, and so what she's doing is no joke, break. So
Well, you know what? Go ahead, high five.
yeah,
I
don't want to put too much of this up because
Yeah, so let's get rid of that one and actually show the one that I just texted you, her SAP tutorial.
Oh, that's a good one.
Just to say it, what Hi-Fi put up is a remarkable piece, but it is also one of the more difficult things that you could possibly read because, like I said, these are psychopathic terrorists who, whose job is to tear people, who think of their job as to tear people's minds apart and
lives and send the police to their houses with
some
weapons.
of those who work forces. I'm sorry, but that's what that one's about.
Are the same that troll forums? Anyway.
So this is
Tom Morello is now a tanky dickhead, and that sucks.
I know.
I can't even talk about that without getting super.
They ruined Rage. Fuck it.
Hey,
I mean,
you know
yeah.
what? I learned a lot.
For God's sake, Roger Waters is tanky too. Also, John Cusack, come on, bro.
I learned a long time ago to separate the art from the artist. I'm still listening to the Smiths. Okay, guilty. Like, yeah, Morrissey, I don't know what happened to you, but I still love your frickin' music from the 80s. So whatever. I interviewed every musician I ever wanted to interview back in the day, and some of them were dickheads, and I still liked their music. So whatever. Okay, so this is a very important piece that Jackie wrote, Defending Against Coordinated Internet Harassment. If you scroll through this, friends, she created an acronym, SAP, for Strategic Attacks Against Public Participation. All those light bulbs, all of those pull quotes that you see, she gives anybody who has been the target of online hate terrorism, ongoing campaigns, paid or just by people who get their kicks causing pain. Please read this. It is so incredibly useful. Monday, I had a super hard day. I woke up Tuesday morning to this, and I swear to God, I got so much relief. Just having a witness to what we endure when we stick our necks out to do this type of work is just really important. And Jackie and I had a moment the other day where we both realized that the beginning of the harassment for both of us was when we publicly announced on Twitter that we were working for political campaigns. And that's what happened. And guess what? My campaign that I worked last year, I never publicly announced it because I did not want to make the job harder than it had to be. And that is also denying me the pleasure of success, of being able to participate in a successful campaign. But I did that to protect myself and my candidate. Eventually, the same cabal of hate terrorists who are assigned to us came for me over there. But by that time, we were well on our way to victory. So fuck off. Seriously.
I would just like to
go ahead.
I just need to point everyone to my header on Twitter.
Oh my God. Yeah.
If I'm not pointing out the flaws out of both of these sides, I'm not doing my job, because I'm sick of bullshit. Yeah. And there's a lot of bullshit coming from both sides right now. So
I know, but you also sort of like kicking the hornet's nest. Hi-Fi. Anybody who comes on our show always gets the same cabal of harassers going, oh, but look at this screenshot, and these are. And I had to explain that you guys may not be choir boys, but in my opinion, you're the best warriors for this fight, and I am grateful to be beside you in this.
No, stop. I can hear what you're doing already, and I don't want you to do that. Don't do that.
I just want to say something. If anyone wants to troll me with old screenshots, is if you're mad about the operations I ran to disrupt QAnon and their controlled opposition, why is that? Were you a member of the QAnon game thing or their controlled opposition?
Oh, speaking of which. Somebody
said you posted some titties. Did you do that?
I don't remember posting titties.
Somebody said you did.
My titties?
I could neither confirm nor deny. I just assumed that he did.
We were.
I don't remember posting.
Said that you posted titties.
When?
I don't know.
Well,
I'm asking you. Are you denying it?
I don't remember. Well, okay.
There it is. I knew it was coming.
I don't know.
Okay.
That is my answer.
I believe
because I post so much.
I
post so much random shit to just. I like to throw data at the algorithm as much as possible, right?
Yeah.
And
just throwing data at the algorithm.
Yeah, and just see what it spits out back at me based on who I interact with.
He can neither confirm nor deny.
But I don't remember.
Moving on.
It's
YouTube.
pretty much.
I generally keep the porn phone is not the Twitter phone. I mean,
Oh
those are
my
two different
God. Oh
phones.
my God. Okay. So okay. That is going to be our show. Okay. But I do want to say in all seriousness,
Sorry, just I had to fuck with people.
I do want to say in all seriousness that I found out another friend who I really love who was going through a bad breakup, went online, found some chat room comfort, and now he's full on QAnon. That is the second person in a month that I know personally. So this fight is not, I mean, it is so far from over. And I'm grateful that we do the work. We have a really great show coming up next week. You're not able to show Water Dean's clip, are you? It'd be so cool if we could end on
I'm
Bob.
not.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and retweet it for those. There's, this is again one of the beautiful things about even defunct, horrible Twitter. You still find these people who are randomly doing the work of democracy in their own way. And I'm going to tweet out Water Bob, who understands that there is only one political party in this country. The other one is a fascist cult. So I just want to say, like, even guys, even he's a veteran, he's in Florida, he sees what's going on. He's a Navy vet, he's a Democrat, he sees what's going on. And I wake up to him and I see what he's posted and I feel better. I feel like there's one more ally. And if we can just get them all one at a time, doing the labor of democracy with us, I'll feel pretty good about that.
Right on. And actually, okay, so
arrest
okay,
Mike Flynn.
arrest Mike
Then
Flynn,
we can
and
celebrate.
I solved the mystery of the boobies. I solved it. Actually, Vaudry helped me solve the mystery of the boobies. So I follow an account that posts stuff about the intelligence community and like history and stuff like that. And it's called, I forget, like Spy Vespers or something like that. But they wrote a book called Honeypots.
Oh.
And it was actually about honeypots. But they were doing this thing like rate the honeypot. And one of them was this art model who had electrical tape. Or no, she had duct tape over.
I'm going to need to come up with a whole new ending now. Like, can we cut this in post?
You had to bring it around to the titties. I knew it. They were right.
Okay.
It was about honeypots.
No, you just proved it, man. You proved them right.
Okay. Well, all I want to know.
At least I admit to my mistakes, if it even was a mistake. It was intelligence community history by showing an art model.
Okay. So, we have such a good episode coming up next week. That should drop Monday before midnight in Hawaii. Is that right?
Or maybe morning.
Okay. Aloha.
Or sometime.
Aloha. Auf Wiedersehen.